I don't have any followers, so it's
I've
not.
already tweeted. I'll retweet this too. I love this photo.
This photo's super great.
I look like hello darkness, my old friend.
I like how Mike's like, this is stupid.
Man.
All right. All right. Let's see. I'm just gonna turn you guys up a little bit. Just one sec.
To you again.
So I can hear you.
Insane.
I think we're ready to go. Does anyone have anything else? Can I get a test from Mike?
Test.
Can I get a test from Crofton?
Test.
All right, and this is a test from me. I feel like we're pretty low on the level, so I'm just gonna do this.
You're low now. I can't hear anything.
Yeah, well, it's because I got up out of my chair to go turn a dial.
He
Okay.
He turned away.
All right. Hi, Wicked Kitten.
Is her name Monica though?
Yeah, but it's internet names.
I don't like internet names.
Why not? I'm Gorath.
They're stupid.
If I had a choice between being called Bo or Gorath, I think I'd go with Gorath.
Bo, didn't you say there was some dude who was asking you to review names, and it was like, I hate to repeat it, Cervix Pounder 69 or some terrible.
You're mixing up two things. I think on Core at one point I went off about some people's really bad names, and then Cervix and so there was a Twitter like thing where I was reviewing people's names, and it was just a thing. Cervix Pounder. That was someone that we played with in Heroes that we saw. You know, every now and then you get Affirmative Action Jackson or, you know, Cervix Pounder or Poop Factory, and you just laugh. And some of them are bad and some of them are funny, and it is what it is. And so
they're mostly
Cervix Pounder really made me laugh because you hear things like, you know, Puss Pounder, like the obvious thing, but the cervix is so far in. And that is evocative, you know. It is like, and so you have to appreciate it a little bit, even if it is, you know.
I don't think you do
an
have to
appropriate name.
You know what's if
I think you have to defriend.
Well, they're not friend. It was someone I played again. Like we reported their name.
Oh yeah, I'm
like,
sure you and Cervix Pounder 69 Bo are playing Heroes every night.
Cervix Pounder 69. It's a big tongue. All right.
It's funny because I'm playing this game right now called Beat Cop, and it's like it's reminded me better.
Is that what you call it?
But it's like it takes place in like 1986 or whatever on the streets of sort of New York. It is written in such a way that like, you know, they're right, like I guess they're trying to write it like things were then, so like people are vulgar and like, but there's like, there's black people, Italian people, and all this, and there's a fair amount of racism, and I'm reading it and I'm like, I don't, this feels wrong. I'm like, I know they're trying to capture a certain time period, but
yeah,
it feels like the way that it's written feels like sometimes I'd read a line and I'm like, this is,
Did you ask yourself?
Yeah, you're like, are they just trying to capture it authentically, or are they using it as a smokescreen to?
Yeah. Like sometimes I'm just like, is this? Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it.
Smokescreen.
All right, who's hosting?
Bo.
Oh shit! Is it my turn?
Uh-oh.
That's the Bo special.
Oh, damn. All right. Let's see here.
You can almost hear his brain working.
Okay.
Click.
All right. Let's. Yeah. All right. Let's do this. I got it. I'm there. All right. Okay. All right. Let's record a show. Everyone. So far the stream quality seems to be okay.
How do you do voice warm up? That's what I'm doing.
Or you might go, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck chuck wood? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? You know, your enunciation exercise.
Oh.
A woodchuck could chuck no amount of wood since a woodchuck can't chuck wood. But even if a woodchuck could chuck wood, and even if a woodchuck would chuck wood, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck?
Whoa.
Wow.
Crofton dug deep there. That's like going back to his camp counselor days, probably.
It's actually from Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge.
Of course, it's a video game.
Peter
Mike's like,
Pan
oh,
syndrome.
outdoor. It came from his outdoor days. Now that he's a shut-in, it's like, nope. All right, good. We're getting started. Good, bad, or bullshit. It's episode number. Let me turn the fan off. Episode number 203, and it begins recording in 5, 4. Hello and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. 3 guys, unlimited opinion, where it's the place where conversation is the foundation for higher thought. My name is Bo Schwartz, and I'm the Ricky of this podcast. And joining me today is my good friend, the Julian of this podcast, Michael Hodgins. Michael, hello.
Got my drink here,
Yeah.
handy.
And also joining us is that greasy-bellied Randy of the podcast, Crofton Steers. Crofton, hello.
I thought I was going to be Bubbles.
I know, I played you.
Take your shirt off.
Yeah. And if you want to fight me, you got to take your pants off, too. You can't fight with your pants on.
I like how that intro plagiarizes both Mike's quote that he originally brought to the table. I don't know how many episodes ago that Bo has reappropriated, and my pop culture references. Damn you, Bo.
He's the new Crofton.
I'm the
And
real
Mike.
lover of Trailer Park Boys here, not you guys.
Hey, question. When do you think, that Mike pulled out that Russian guy's quote conversation?
Lev Vygotsky?
Yeah,
Don't forget him.
How do we have any idea of what episode that was in and how long ago? Because Bo has literally been keeping it alive
I
forever.
love that quote. That's a good quote.
Yeah, I thought that was our show's, like, kind of quasi-official tagline or subtitle.
I don't remember when I saw it.
You can't make something our tagline, but it's Bo's tagline.
I'm the
That's what
Ricky.
it is.
Well, it's his intro. It's Bo's intro shtick.
Wait, do
have
you
your...
guys
No,
not
no,
say it?
I appreciate it. No, nobody else says it, Bo, but I
That's too bad.
appreciate it. But I want to know how long it's being running for.
I don't
Feels
know.
like a long time now.
Yeah,
Somebody,
it's been a long time.
some loyal listener should dig deep and tell me. Send me an email.
Yeah,
A tweet.
We may have used it as a intro for the show. That might be a quick way to find it. There's only 203 episodes to listen to search for it.
I know that I remember Mike using the quote and then us butchering it back and forth. Like there was a notable episode, but I didn't realize how historically significant it was at that time.
It might have been one of the education-related ones. I don't know why that rings a bell, but I don't know.
Speaking
Hey,
of
you guys
education-related things,
Yes? You want me to educate you about something I learned today?
yeah.
No, yesterday. This is kind of a funny... When I heard it, I was like, this is... It's kind of obvious, but also, like, weird. So I was listening to this... I've been into the Sam Harris podcast lately, as I've been mentioning. I listened to this one, and it was, like, this philosophical thing about consciousness or whatever. But this guy, Thomas Metzinger, I don't know if he coined this term, but it makes me... Or just mentioned it. So it's existence bias. It just makes me laugh. And it's the bias that humans have in which we assume existence is good. And I'm like, and it, it's so basic because you're like, yeah, I do suffer from that bias. I am like, yeah, I like existing. It must be good. And it's like, and he was basically saying it's just hardwired in us. We can't imagine that existing isn't good, though in reality, it probably is as good as existing. It's just whatever. But we have this strong bias to be like, oh, we must exist. Anyways, just a funny, like, in some ways, a super basic concept. But then when I heard it, I was like, huh.
You know,
Yeah.
you should tell that to your friend The Wall.
I did. We kept chatting after our video the other day.
Yeah, so quick update for all the listeners. We made much ado on episode 201 about this wall. In fact, we had someone live on the show help us meet our goal. So Mike would make a 20-minute video of him talking to a wall based on a challenge presented by Jimmy the Shovel. Not the Mafia Jimmy the Shovel, the other Jimmy the Shovel. And we made it. And then Mike made the video. And it's live on our YouTube right now. YouTube.com/goodbadbull.
It's extremely exciting.
I was most
Oh,
impressed.
didn't you do a big write-up for it to describe what happened in the video?
No,
Actually, the title summarizes it aptly.
Yeah. It's very good. The wall has the word "wall" written on it, which I thought was, a pretty ingenious
Special effects.
Yeah.
Or makeup. I don't know which.
It's actually set design.
Set design.
But
What
you know,
captures the wall?
same area, all in the crafts and carpentry.
I gotta give Mike full credit, not only for doing it, but also I watched the whole thing or listened to it or whatever you do to somebody watching a wall, talking to a wall. But I was just saying to you guys offline how it feels like when something becomes a huge success, they start spinning off and doing prequels and all this, and then like origin episodes. Maybe Bo gets his own spin-off podcast focused on some video game or something like that. Like there's different things when you become big successes like we are now. And I feel like I feel like this is sort of Mike's origin story, if you will, why he was interested in doing the podcast, what he gets out of doing the podcast, the way that his brain sort of thinks and what he's looking for out of sort of the conversations and stuff. So I found that really, really interesting. And how when you're filling 20 minutes talking to a wall, I guess you start digging deep and getting introspective because you're going to end up talking about yourselves. But it made me curious about like what Bo talking to a wall would be like, I guess.
I don't know. And it definitely well maybe we'll find out one day if we ever have another drive. But it was harder than I thought, and I'm pretty good at talking to
because it doesn't really talk back. That's the big trouble.
No, there's no cues. It's funny, you take for granted how much those little cues in a conversation are helpful. But the funny thing is, the first version I did that was 17 minutes before the tape, dating myself, ran out. But that conversation was totally different. I remember going on for a long time about how I didn't want to travel to the States while Trump was president. Was going on about this for some reason. Anyways, lost to history, that rant.
All right.
Well, the wall remembers.
Yeah, the wall does. But it's very hush about it.
Speaking of things that are lost to history, though, folks, we have a random topic generator. Why don't we use it to find a random topic? How about that?
Let's do that.
Yeah,
let's get started here.
Let's go.
But is it lost to history? Because
we have.
No, our episodes are lost to history.
No. The glory day of the random topic generator was like circa 1600, and now it's a relic. Legend has it Da Vinci designed it.
He designed everything. He probably painted it too. Fucking Da Vinci.
Wait, are you anti Da Vinci?
He's just too good at too many things.
Apparently, he was strong too.
God damn it!
Did he have a big penis as well?
I had a professor in college who made a point of saying Da Vinci could take an iron bar in his hands and bend it. Made it happen. I was like, I want to say, like, how do you know that? But anyways, also the most handsome man of his era.
Goddamn Da Vinci.
Confusing Clark Kent with Da Vinci.
Okay, so the topic today is robot life partners.
Oh.
I really know what this is.
I think it's pretty
I
self-explanatory.
Yeah. It's marrying a robot, a life partner. See, a life partner. I think the life partner is said that way to keep it gender neutral. So we're not talking girlfriends, boyfriends. It could be either. It could be both. It could be non-sexual.
It's your sex doll. You're marrying your sex doll. That's
it could be non-sexual if you're.
There's a robot. Sex dolls aren't robots.
A life partner is not necessarily marrying. It just might be your best friend that you're committed to and spending your life together with.
I call my wife my life partner.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you can be married, but you don't have to be married. I don't want to get hung up on what life partner means, but a life partner can imply or not imply marriage, but it implies a long-term commitment based out of love. Not out of sex, but out of love.
What's the topic again?
Robot
Life partners?
Life partners. Robot. We're just settling on the
Robots.
life partner bit. I feel that's important before this turns into, so you're marrying your sex doll? Well, like, why don't we all marry your sex dolls and put all the women on
Well,
an
first
island?
about the life partner thing, because it is sex dolls. Because it's like, would you consider Chewbacca to be Han Solo's life partner?
No.
No.
Doesn't he have a life debt to Han
Yeah,
Solo?
but they don't refer to each other as their life partners.
Well,
Yeah,
you
That's
because
can-
why.
There can still be. They don't cuddle each other, and are not intimate.
How
I
do
think you
know
can
that?
have those things and not necessarily have sex.
A cold night on Hoth, who wouldn't want to be snuggled up next to?
That's
I
a good
think-
point, actually. I'd be Chewbacca's life partner.
Yeah, well, anyways, Han Solo wasn't because I think they weren't getting busy. I feel like the sexual component.
You're hung
of
up
this-
on sex. You're a perverted mind. We talked about
I
psychology.
have the perverted.
We talked about psychology last week, and I think thou doth protest too much, sir.
Okay,
I
so
just
you marry
think
your
that-
robot sex partner, and you spend your that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, but I mean,
So,
it
is this
doesn't
a
have to
science
be
fiction
sex,
topic?
but sex can be a thing here.
So now it is sex.
I'm just saying it doesn't have to be, but it probably is. But I'm saying, what are the reasons you have a life partner? Did you marry your wife because you just wanted a guaranteed source of sex income? I
Wait,
could've
did
phrased
you
that
listen to
better.
the show?
What's that?
No, that's
Oh.
not why I married her.
Oh,
Yeah,
me
exactly.
neither, right.
So
yeah.
why, if you were in love with a robot, you wouldn't just see. You're thinking of robots in this
No, but it's a
futuristic
lot of stuff.
prostitution
Like,
way, right?
intimacy with my wife's important. It's part of the life
Mhm.
partner stuff. That we have a lot more going on there. I just mean like, anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to get hung up on.
no.
So just
definitions
question here.
as we
So
can.
first off, it's pretty clear to me who put this topic in the random topic generator.
Was it me?
It wasn't me.
Yeah, sure. Secondly, like I every once in a while in my news feed there'll be like an article about some often Asian person that has like
You racist.
that has like a
Wait, are
robot
you subscribed
or-
to like
Just
overseas
shut
mail
up for
order
a second.
brides?
that has a robot or a humanoid looking like lady friend or whatever. Is this robot life partner thing? Is this something that exists and is happening now, or are we doing one of those episodes where we speculate on the future when robots walk among us as humanoid androids and la 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 la? Is that what we're doing?
So yes, because I know we don't look things up on the show, but just open up your Google, type in "marrying robots." The first article here is Chinese man marries robot he built himself. This is actually a thing. All right. The second
So
one
he's
is,
Asian?
is Fortune.com says humans.
You are racist. It's nothing to the fact that he's Asian is irrelevant.
And if
All
you
right.
click on it,
He's a pervert. That's what's relevant.
if you click on it, it looks kind of creepy. Like she looks like a sex doll. And,
Really?
Yes. Oh, so I'm
Surprising.
racist. The sex doll thing.
But it's a thing. This is a thing. Like we can laugh at it, or we can take it seriously, or do whatever we want. But it's a thing. People.
So when
are
one person does something, it's a thing.
No, it's not one person. These are many people who are building robots who want to marry them. We're exploring this in movies. There was a fairly good movie about artificial intelligence which explored notions of, the Turing test, right? Which is like, can you tell if this thing was artificially created or not? So we're dipping our toes in the theoretical, even if we're not there currently. I think with this topic, it's that if we can build an AI, and people are working on AI right now, that is indistinguishable from a real living person with a soul. We talked about souls last week on psychology, and I felt like we didn't have one, and Crofton didn't like that idea. So can you build a machine that simulates a person that just basically is a person, and then can you marry that machine? And
Well,
how is that different
okay.
from
I
marrying
think
a real person?
you're going on a bunch of this. You're extending this.
He's trying to get me. He's trying to
The
get us
topic isn't in theory. Could you marry something that's indistinguishable from a human being that doesn't exist yet? It's like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. If it's indistinguishable from a human being, it may as well be a human being where there's no conversation.
Well, that's an
If it's
opinion. You can't just write it off and be like, whatever.
well, that's not what the topic was. The topic was robot life partners, and the robots
they
we
would
have
be
now.
robots.
Bo, let me finish. The robots we have now, in case you haven't noticed, are distinguishable from human beings.
Yes.
And so, so if you marry one, everyone's gonna know, and it's a weird thing.
Yeah, but somebody's got to be the pioneer. We
yeah,
can't
and
just
then
have it,
look.
the right way right off the bat.
But I did ask Bo if this was a sci-fi thing or if it was a current.
Well, it's what
current,
we want.
No, I know. It's whatever we want. No,
I didn't look. The random topic generator just gave it to us.
I'm just saying. To me, this is clearly more of a science fiction thing, and there are tons of. He's right. There's tons of movies, from like Blade Runner and the Replicants to like more recently they did that movie Her, where the guy falls in love with the Siri thing. There's a lot of
example.
of movies with them, and there's also like bromances type things where like like the Iron Giant and all these movies where like the character, the artificial intelligence or robotic character has some sort of personality and soul, I guess, or whatever, and then but it's all fake, it's all fiction, it's all done for our amusement. So I mean, like, if the question is if we get to the like is this concept, like, if we could do this, if we could have like android people, like what do I imagine that would look like? What are the limits of my imagination? Because I believe in the soul and I believe in people. I don't believe in the ability to construct a human exactly as a human is. I would say that like it is literally it would be marrying a robot. And do I think that that's a positive thing or not? And I don't know. That's where it gets to peeling the onion, because it's like, I mean, people are lonely, right? And there should be someone for everyone. That's what you hear all the time, but that's not necessarily always the case. And like, it's good for someone to have a pet for companionship. Is it so bad for someone to have a robot? This is all in the hypothetical. But yeah.
It reminds me of this. I read this article a while, but this is a bit of an off thing. It was about the article was about disgust and how it plays an important role in sort of our thinking about morals and ethics or whatever. And it was about this guy who was a professor or something, had a student or a former student or something, wrote to him and said that he'd been having sex with his dog, and was this right? And his initial reaction was like, this is disgusting. And when I think of that, I'm like, oh, that's wrong. That feels wrong, right? It affects my morality, my moral view on the thing, because I find it disgusting. But then he said that the professor said, he asked some questions. He's like, well, is the dog, upset by this? And then the guy says, no, the dog seems like to enjoy it. And then, so he's like, you know what? It's like, I can't tell you it's wrong. It's probably not morally wrong. It's like, if it's, and so, but do you find it disgusting? And then it's kind of comes that debate of like, do you judge others by stuff like that? And the same thing is true. We have to separate these things because it's still a debate in some places, but gay marriage is a thing which I'm wholly in favor of, supporting as a policy. But that, people have been against it because they personally don't, they're like, oh, I think that's gross or whatever personally, therefore it's wrong morally. But those things are not related. You can be like, it's not immoral for someone who's gay. You may not like it, but don't, whatever, who cares? And so, I mean, I'm bringing this up because when initially I was like, oh, marrying a robot, that's stupid, or living with, and then I'm like, well, I shouldn't say that, because people had that knee-jerk reaction about same-sex couples, and it was a lot of work to change that culture. Now I'm just putting this out there because I'm trying to get over my initial reaction of like, I think it's weird to have a robot life partner.
I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
You make tons of sense there, except for the big leap between human interaction, could be gay, lesbian, trans, straight, whatever, incest, to animals, to robots. I mean, like, soon as it exits the world of humans, that's where I feel like you're legitimate to be like, okay, I'm glad for this guy and his dog, except for the fact that the first time, I wonder if that dog is like, what's going on? Because
What's going
like, essentially, like, it's great that they enjoy it now, but like that relationship started in some. I don't even want to think.
I feel like in the case of animals, it's morally objectionable in the same way that we have an age cutoff for these things for children, in that there is an intelligence mismatch that makes it predatory. Like, I think what's gross about it is not that it's a horse and that he licks his own balls or something. It's just that it's like you're using it in this kind of gross, self-satisfying way that clearly they're losing out on. And mind you, we'll slaughter them by the millions and be like, oh, that's a good use for cows. But marriage, nope, that's gross. And it's like, probably has to do with disease, probably has to do with just we have to have a moral foot somewhere in our world. Like I feel like we got to be centered somehow, right? Like in that sense. But maybe you're right. I don't know. But the premise with the robot marrying your life partner, having a robot life partner, would be that it's one of two things. It's an inanimate object, so you're having fun. You have fun with lots of things that use AI. You have fun programming your route in your car. You have fun playing video games. Like, they all utilize AI to some extent to simulate an experience that you get engagement out of. So why not do that with marriage? Wouldn't it be much easier to, when your robot wife was arguing with you, take out the trash, you could power it down, and you're not violating any human rights.
Control Alt Delete End Task
All right.
Trash.
It's funny, when you were saying this, I kept thinking of this like stupid saying where people be like, well, if you love your car so much, why don't you marry it? And it's always like, that's a thing you say to people about whatever they love so much. Why don't you marry it? Because usually it's a stupid thing, and I don't think it's meant to be like, actually, this relationship you have with this inanimate. Well, and it both said inanimate object, and I wanted to say something about that because that's what I thought of that too. But I'm like, a robot's not an inanimate object. It is an animate object.
So that's the two parts to it. One is it's an inanimate object. It's a robot. Robot has a very strict meaning, not necessarily meaning. Hang on.
It's animate.
It's no. What I'm saying is that it's not considered sentient or having a conscience.
Alive, yeah.
However, we have examples of these things. Android, like Data, is a prime example. Data was in relationships. Yeah, now. Okay, you shake your head, but we are working on artificial intelligence. We don't feel, we still dream the dream, and many scientists do, that we can create a consciousness from programming it. Like, there is a way to solve this puzzle to replicate a mind, replicate consciousness. And should that be the case, and they have a robot body and something, whatever the Turing test, we get data. That's okay. And there's two threads to robot life partners, right? But one is more science fiction, as Crofton pointed out.
Okay.
We don't have AI. The other one is we probably could program. We could use some of the Overwatch AI and put it into a robot, and you've got your girlfriend
shoot
Widowmaker
you or something.
We've got Widowmaker. You got your Widowmaker girlfriend or your Soldier 76 boyfriend. Hanzo.
We're going straight down Bo's fantasy
rabbit hole right now.
Better
I don't know really what you're talking about anymore.
It just means that you could program a simulation of intelligence that would not be intelligent, actual intelligence.
A couple things that I want to that you tweaked in me when you were talking there. So in the first case, okay, so you develop a sentient AI. Mm-hmm. And then it's in a robot body, and you want to marry it. You're making a massive assumption that it wants to marry you, and I think that, and you might say like, well, yeah, no, it would have to want to too.
No,
but I think
it wouldn't. I think we would have robot rights if we had sentient robots.
No, I do not think so. I think that if you have sentient, if we ever have sentient,
I mean, it's a lot of hypotheticals. There'd probably be an enslavement period and then a civil rights movement and all that business.
It is, but the point is, people are already thinking about this stuff, the ethics of AI, And it won't be as simple as like if you have a sentient AI and you want to marry it and it does not want to marry you, you're not going to be able to marry it. Like it's just not going to happen. And there's also
Well, we all know that though. That's easy.
so what I guess what I'm saying is of your two threads,
Yeah.
I think that first one of the sentient AI is a huge leap, huger than seems obvious
Okay.
because of these movies like the Siri things or it can be there and you have this connection. Probably that AI that you make is not going to give a fuck about you and be like, I'm a computer and look at this like hairy ape. Why would I want to marry that? There's AIs that are I'm smarter than it. Why would you marry it? Why would you, Bo, have sex with a dog? You wouldn't. But
Wait, what?
I just mean like, well.
Oh, I see. Why would you have sex with my point from earlier that it's morally
but
objectionable?
I was like, I find it's very unlikely that most human beings don't want to have sex with a dog. There's a good reason for that, and I think the AI might see you as the dog or me as the dog.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to
I
get
like
with
that
thing.
point. That's pretty good.
So,
It wouldn't see me as the dog.
So the point is, it would see you as something else. But the point is, it's probably not going to want to marry you, and it's probably not going to have the same kind of urges that you have, anyways. And it might not want companionship.
But
who knows? Just let me finish. And then the other thought I have is that then if it's the other way, where it's like you just program your robot to do stuff for you, and now I think we're coming back to like this is just a sex toy of some kind, and you program it to do your bidding, and then I'd be like, the term life partner, it's like partnership. There's no partnership. So I think that if you do that, it's an object of yours that you like that man who married his robot. Like he doesn't have a relationship with it because it's incapable of a relationship. And I think that if you
be more life companion.
Yeah, well, maybe companion is a better way to frame it. But like to have a relationship with a thing that you have total control over, it's not really a relationship, and that's why it makes me think this whole concept is now getting the former one, putting that aside, the sentient AI thing, and just being like the robot thing. It's like a false premise. Like you're doing, you're basically having a relationship with yourself. You're like, what do I want this thing to do? It's a live fantasy. Like it's not a real relationship. It's not even a companion. It's just something you're alone in your house and you're like, I just want something to fill this void in my head, but I want it to be exactly how I want it to be. It's not. It's weird.
Yeah, I'm reading this article a little bit. You just gotta hear this, all right? A Chinese artificial intelligence engineer has given up on the search for love and married a robot he built himself. Okay, his name is Zheng Jiajia, 31. Decided to commit after failing to find a human spouse, his friend told the Evening News. The reason he did it is he become tired of the constant nagging from his family and pressure to get married, so he turned to a robot he built named Ying Ying. And I'm just isn't your family even more mad right now?
Is this the same guy as before?
Yeah. I'm reading this article and I just think it's absolutely hilarious.
So it's one guy who's married a robot.
No. That's the article I found. I haven't done a survey to find out how many marriages there are.
But you know what I'm most annoyed about right now? You're reading this article while I was on that big rant, and now you're like responding to it.
So, but
that was a rant.
Look,
I let you rant.
It's my turn here. And I would say it is tricky because it's essentially a sci-fi concept. I think when it was put in as a sci-fi concept, getting caught up on the life partner over companion type thing is for me not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is like, is it healthy? Is it healthy for individuals in general to have to fill their need for companionship with essentially artificial companionship? Like if Bo's already spoken about the fact that he has what do you call that sex toy there, the one with the what is it,
the fleshlight?
Yes, if he took his fleshlight and he put googly eyes over it and called it Mr. or Mrs. Fleshlight or whatever, and he's like taking it out on dates, and he's got it out, like they have, obviously they do the stuff that they do, and they have they have the relationship and stuff like that. Well, the fleshlight is like, it's even if it was robotic and had little legs and walked around or whatever, it's still a thing, right? Like and meanwhile,
I'd
Bo
like
is
to be there. I think it'd be really funny if I brought Mrs. Fleshlight to Christmas Star Wars. So we go to see Star Wars every year, and we buy a seat for Mrs. Fleshlight.
popcorn.
That'd be hilarious.
My point is just that there's no damage to the fleshlight aside from use. Like really, the only damage is to Bo's psyche, right? Like he's the one. I mean, it's enabling. Uh, um, it's filling a void that he has identified because he's filling it with this thing, but it's not healthy. Like it feels like it's not the right move. If we have these humanoid, robots, even the ones that Mike said that you can program, there's problems with that as well. Obviously, you're creating something that does everything you want and meets your needs and all this. But even if there was some level of like back and forth relationship of some sort, and I don't know how that would exist, it's still not healthy for the actual human. Like they should be having relationships with other humans, and this is inhibiting this or getting in the way of this. Like if they're staying at home with their robot buddy, then they're not going out and interacting with the real world, right? Like I don't see what the positive is, except for some very like you could stretch it and be like, okay, I'm disabled. I'm like I've lost the use of my legs, and I'm at home. I'm never, I've tried to meet folks, but I've also hideously scarred. I don't know, whatever, and this robot that I can get is really what I feel the only source of companionship I will get. I have no family, whatever. I don't know. Like you can come up with situations in which I think it would be mostly a positive, but it sounds like if this was available to the masses, it would kind of be unhealthy for folks, disregarding the rights of whatever these robots, if they have sentience or not.
You think our rate of divorce is healthier? Isn't this a cleaner way to manage a lot of folks who are too immature to be with a life partner, at least to have the simulation of experience rather than cause death and destruction in their love lives?
I think divorce is a relationship that at one point worked out so well that the couple made a statement that they're going to unite forever, and then it did not work out eventually. And that is it better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And I think the idea is that those experiences help mold and grow a person and all this. But to me, nothing would be more unhealthy than what Mike was sort of describing earlier, which was the concept of creating the perfect, submissive representation of your desires in like artificial intelligence form. Like you create, what does that do for you as a person? How does that push you or help you grow? It doesn't. I mean, it just
is
like
that what we want from a partner though, to be pushed and grown as a person?
Well, sort of. Like I agree with Crofton on this front. Like it's not just like I think it's unhealthy to just be like, I just want the world to be how I want it. Period. Like I think that's not.
That sounds really defeatist and downtrodden, though.
Well,
right?
Yes, it is. It's a. I mean, that's
not everyone shares that philosophy.
What?
Not everyone shares that philosophy, though.
No, but I mean, if you want, especially if you want to have a robot life partner that you program and you design to be the way you want it to be, it just like. That I find defeatist in the sense that you're just like, I don't want to, this guy in China doesn't want to, tired of searching for a real human and who has, thoughts and feelings which are incongruous with his own or whatever. Like, it's just,
people are a pain in the ass, right? Like, wouldn't it be great if
in the ass,
your life partner wasn't a pain in the ass?
But here's the thing: is that human beings are innately social creatures. And being social involves dealing with other people who are often a pain in the ass or who ask you to do things. I mean, social interaction isn't just like you going out and finding someone and telling them what you think and them saying yes I agree, or do this thing I want, and they say yes I will do what you want. Like that's not what social interaction is. It's like it's a relationship.
But you'll have
Relationships
social. You'll still probably go to work, and you'll still hang out with your friends.
What I mean is it from your
world.
life. Like again, when I think of my life partner, I have a life partner.
Mm-hmm.
That's my wife, and what I want from her isn't like compliance, obedience, fits a mold which I have in my head. Those are not the things I want from her. She enriches my life because she brings new things into it. She challenges me in ways which make me grow or reconsider. And that's a valuable thing, and that's part of what a relationship brings. I mean, I have a relationship with you guys, and you don't always tell me what I want to hear. Here I have Bo is about to marry a robot sex doll.
I'm questioning a lot of your conceived notions as
that.
biases
You're
of our time.
Me.
Look,
and look, what you just said.
Look, 50 years ago, the role of a woman was to clean and to rear children and to do all kinds of godly stuff. You're a product of your age now, where we don't believe in those things as much. There are still people who do, plenty of them. What if, we could offset some of this need for servitude in someone's life with robots? And doesn't a robot, if I come home and a robot's done my laundry, cuddled with me, made me dinner, took care of the kids, and then
then that would just propagate the same issues. Like we're working these issues out of society right now, mm-hmm. and it like as time goes on, yes, there's people that are still like this, but we're becoming more progressive, moving towards equality. If we enable and facilitate the worst vices of people, I mean, it's just they're not going to learn anything. Like, and obviously, like I've said many of the same things Mike has in this regard of having like I just think it's tremendously unhealthy to have a yes person, no matter what it is, like in business, in your personal life, in whatever, somebody that is submissive to you and will not ever stand up or tell you what they think. And the idea of like, well, they'll just get the stuff that you want done in any walk of life. I've never subscribed to that personally, and I don't see it as a positive
I think it makes our sensibilities uncomfortable because we are products of our age where we treat women with respect and recognize them as people. But there are many ages where women are not people. Like women have not been respected. And so if you remove yourself from that history for a second and ask, why have we done that? And maybe the life partner doesn't have to be a woman, doesn't have to be a man. That's why I went with it could be gender neutral. What function in your household, what things do you need done in your culture? And I'm saying that the idea of partnership and what it means to us can evolve. So what are the things in a loving human-to-human relationship are absolutely necessary?
Okay, first of all, because what you're describing, again, you use the word partnership, so I was trying to get away from it because what you're describing isn't a partnership. And you're being
that's
like,
not what I'm describing.
Well, yes, it is, because you're saying like...
No, I'm not describing partnership, I suppose. I'm the servitude.
You said partnership in your last thing, so just let me say
you can have business partners that get things done for you, like partnership that is partnership, actually.
But still, a partnership is still a go-between. It's different than so you said, okay, it's different than a client, client relationship is different than a partnership. A partnership is, again, one in which...
Partnerships. The words fit interchangeably.
No, there is a client. What's the other end of the client? Client, whatever, relationship.
Client service? I don't know.
Well, if someone's the client, who's the other person?
The
service
business
provider?
Whatever. That's a relationship. That's it's kind of a relationship, but it's not a partnership. A partnership in business might be like, I want to open up a new business in this country, and the partner's like, look, we need to expand our business here first. Give it 6 months. That partnership has that kind of dynamic. What you're describing is a dominance model, and which is one. I think you were right to point out the fact that at some point, women weren't considered people, and nor were people of different races and certain cultures, including slavery in the United States and other places, of course, and that we look back on those as problematic, and yes, we're judging a time past from the time we live in, but I think what we can say to be true about those things is that there are power imbalances. They are one in which this person has all the power and that person does
Right.
not.
I
And
understand that, but it's a robot, not a person, unless it's a
Then it's not
sentient
a
AI.
partnership.
but yes, exactly. That's what I'm getting back to. And so what you're describing is what you want.
Well, it's
'Cause there's something
simulated.
different
It's
between a robot
simulated
life
partnership.
Just let me finish. There's a.
I get your
if this
point.
top-
You're using too many words to describe it. I
Okay,
understand.
if what you were describing was like the topic was robot life partner, and that's why this is such a muddy topic. If it was like robot machine that cleans my house and makes dinner for me and does all the stuff I don't like doing, I'd be like, okay, sure. Who doesn't want that? That was like always the promise of the 1950s, that we'd all have a robot that did all this stuff, and it doesn't have sentience, so you don't have to worry about how it feels because it doesn't feel. That's different than a robot life partner. This implies relationship, and the only one you're describing is one of dominance and control. And as how that relates back to society, because you also said, well, you'd still have social interaction out in the world. And I would again say, having this dominant relationship in your home where you are the boss and you program the robot to do your bidding as you like is not going to help you when you go out into the world. It's the reason when you have children, you say, like, don't do that thing, Billy, or behave like this, Bobby or Susie or whatever the hell your kid's name is. Because you have to train people to live in a society, and it's not just like do whatever I want now. And I just feel like that's kind of what you're always getting at.
No,
here,
but it's exact. Like, I already know all of what you're saying. If it's a robot, it's not sentient, so none of that can be true. But you can have the partner. You can have your whatever you call it, my robot wife, my robot husband, whatever it is. You can have the simulation of that thing in the case of a robot. And in the case of an actual AI, we're just talking about people. Like, we kind of covered that area, right? Well, in the sci-fi universe, an AI is basically a person, maybe a way more sentient person. So like, it's a different question. In terms of a robot, so you have a robot that's programmed to simulate the duties of a wife. Maybe it even has a simulated personality. So it gives you a sass when you come home late from work and didn't call first, right? You have the we're talking about simulacrum here. You guys are hung up on the fact there's morality about, well, it's a robot, so it's servitude. But if it simulates all the triggers and things, kind of like in the Matrix, how it's not real, but it feels real. Well, if you have a robot life partner that feels real, but it's technically not real, that's what I'm like interested in. Because I'm like, well, I can't tell the difference. I'll eat the steak.
I would return back to my point earlier, which Mike sort of reinforced there, which is that, like, I'm not so much interested in the inanimate or animate or whatever object as much as I am is in the health consequences for the person who engages in this sort of behavior. And like, well, like, I get having a vacuum that vacuums your house, like those little robot vacuums that go around, or something that, you know, cleans the kitchen or whatever, like a robot. But to have one that's supposed to serve as companionship and replace a wife or a husband, I think that could have negative emotional impacts on the person. I think it would, especially if it was a relationship of dominance, as Mike said. Even if it's like, I get your simulacrum and all your words to make it sound not as bad, but it is still bad for the person who is, as Mike said, going out in the world afterwards and taking this being the boss of their domain and having somebody, you know, or a representation of a person defer to them, and then go out and try to have real relationships with people in the real world. I don't think it's a positive, and I don't think that, like, if they've identified that they have a need for companionship, because like, part of it comes from having a need for companionship. If you don't need companionship, then you don't need this thing to begin with, or you just need a robot that, you know, one of those vacuum cleaners that goes around or whatever. If you have a need for companionship and you're not getting a dog and you want one of these robots that looks like a human and does all these things, well, then what do you actually want? You probably want an actual relationship with someone. And in which case it's like, I don't understand why you just wouldn't go out and do that.
I can tell
and
you, I'm that person. I don't want a relationship, but I do get lonely for certain creature comforts. And if I had a way to engage in those things, like cuddling, without having to have someone get mad at me for some shit I did, like I have very little patience anymore for the kind of dynamic that a partnership brings. I want it. I want that. And
Well,
I don't worry about the kind of person who would make me because I think I'd be happier. So I'd want to go down that
like
road.
I mean, I still think you're trying to. So what's interesting is that the fact that you get lonely shows that you're still like a human being. That's a good thing. You have social needs, and I think you're attempting to replace them with something which won't
I haven't
ultimately
attempted
fulfill.
anything.
You have what?
I haven't attempted anything.
Well,
what about Mrs. Flashlight with the googly eyes
It's a
that you
sex
did earlier?
toy. That's used
No.
for, pleasure, for
I'm
fun.
just teasing you.
I know, but what I'm actually speaking about are creature comforts that only a human can offer, that we don't have right now, that robotics does present the potential to offer
Well,
to people.
so the thing is that I first of all again would be surprised if a robot could offer something like cuddling that felt authentic, and second of all,
Maybe.
you may be aware that there are services, cuddling services, that if you don't want a relationship, you can pay someone to cuddle with you non-sexually,
Yes.
and they will look it up, Google it, you'll see it. It's a growing trend apparently, and uh, so it's just like I still think that the idea of the robot thing, it's not going to fulfill these needs with when what you keep describing are social needs, and as pretending a robot is going to meet them, I think is still unrealistic.
I just
And
don't know how you guys can be so sure. I don't know either way. Like, how are you
well,
so sure that it's like bad for
because
people?
of the thing is because this term, the uncanny valley, where something is like slightly off-putting when it looks
No,
too.
the uncanny valley is when something looks so realistic it looks fake. Like there's that spot there.
But yes, like I mean,
But
well,
we
it's
don't
also
know
when
that.
but it's not just
Can't say that.
it so looks so real, it looks fake. It's also kind of creepy, So I think if you're cuddling with this like plastic skinned thing, it kind of looks human and it's
Well, it'd be
cold.
silicone, not plastic. My God.
Okay, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, some kind of non-skin surface, and you're touching it, and then maybe it has heaters in it, so it has these lopsided heat spots, and you're just like, you're gonna be like, what is this thing? It's not the same as cuddling with a person who cares about you
You
as
guys
well.
you're
Like it
so
might.
definitive about this. I don't think there's much. Yeah. Anyways, I find it discouraging that in a world of possibility and imagination, you're like, you guys are so set against this being such a bad
Well, I
thing.
also just think that that an actual relationship, like you've built up this kind of like the
Hmm.
negativities, like someone might ask me or tell me to do something that I don't like, so never want to be in a relationship again. There are positive and negatives that come with a relationship, and what you're trying to be like, well, I don't like the negatives, so I don't want but I want to have a robot which gives me the positives, and I think that again, probably the reason it all works is because it's a holistic thing, and it's just like, and why it's useful to be in a relationship or have relationships with people, it's useful because it's how you navigate the whole world. It's like you always have to, like, if you have a partner who sometimes says things you don't like, you, you might you have to have a conversation with them, you have to find compromise. It's like that's how all of politics works, that's how all of like dynamics work with any human being. And if you have a relationship, it's
It's
continual
true.
like practice.
Politics works really well. There isn't an idiot
Well,
that gets.
we had a
idiots don't get
conversation
elected.
about it, and it's like, but the thing is, again, you can't. Yeah, I see that
Can I
episode.
can
About
I get in
politics.
for a sec?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I'm like being definitive in different things of how this is gonna work, or what, like, is it a long-term good idea to do these sort of things and develop these technologies? I can't be definitive on that. I don't know. Like when Mike was getting into the tactile description of what these would feel like, I don't know, maybe it'd be better technology. I don't know. All I know is that I do not see the positive that comes out of this, because for me, it in terms of the real human that exists in the world, it is allowing them to avoid interactions with real people. It's creating artificial barriers in between getting out there and interacting with people in the world or even online. It's providing a substitute that's not real, that may in a relationship where you control everything. So like that's not going to create positive reinforcements. There's no way to look at that as in a positive way that I would think that for the human, like and so that person is putting themselves in a in a sheltered environment where they control everything and get what they want. And I just don't see how that leads to positive growth for that person or the people in general, like in the world. And I don't really care about, the robot or how it feels or what I know about it. I don't know anything really about it. All I know is that it doesn't sound like a good idea for the healthy development of a person to be in a relationship with something artificial like this. Like that would be my overall takeaway.
I mean, it sounds like Croft and I are quite on the same page with this, and I just to reiterate his point, but the control factor is the one that's really like off-putting to me, where it's like you want to have this thing and this human replacement, but again that you have control over, and I find it regressive. In the same way that if we agree, and Bo, presumably you agree that women are people now, and that we think this is a good thing, and that we like people, it.
But yes, I agree.
What?
Yes, I agree. They've always been people, but yes, I agree.
Yeah, but it wasn't always agreed upon, right?
Right. I'm just saying I've always felt that way. Well, you said now.
You're the one I bring it up because you're the one who pointed out that it wasn't always such, but we agree that it is. And to me, this idea is regressive in the same way that it would be to be say like, you know what, let's get rid of women's rights and make them be just home. It is in the same way that you're like, well, I don't want, because what you're saying is like, I don't want a relationship with a woman because she has her own thoughts and feelings and might stand up for herself.
She can get her own robot husband. I can get my robot wife, and we'll all fucking be better. Like, you guys are so hard on this. Like, it's gonna kill your character. You're gonna be so like, the world's gonna be such a crappy place. I'm like, come on, get off the high horses. Holy cow!
It's regressive in the sense that what you're craving, or what to me the person who craves in this is control. And control and dominance,
yes,
and I think
that's
those
always a factor in all relationships.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I think that those are largely negative parts of the human psyche that we shouldn't be encouraging people. Like, you know what, you should have control over all these things. It's the cooperation aspect of humanity, which is our strongest suits, our ability to compromise, our ability to understand others, especially when we disagree with them, and find ways forward. That's what's useful. It's not useful to just be like, well, I want to dominate, I want to control.
That happens the least in marriages. The place for like cooperation and compromise happens the least overall per cap. You guys both might have great cooperative marriages. I know of quite a few that they're not, and they don't work.
I would argue that probably the ones that aren't working is because one person in that relationship probably has a desire for power, control, an unwillingness to bend. Sure. And again, instead, what you're saying is, let's just feed that. Let's just give them the thing that they can control.
Let's work with. If we have a nature that is inescapable, unless we want to get into reprogramming the human mind, which is another science fiction topic we can talk about. But let's keep out of that for now. Let's work with humans as they are. We're working with the grain. It's like, no, just learn to compromise. Guess what? Think of how many people need to learn lessons in life that just don't learn lessons. The same shit keeps still happening. People still getting shot for no reason. Things are getting better, but, what if relationships can evolve to that point where we can have these things and respect other humans? And I think there's potential in this. I really do.
It's funny because it sounds like normally I'm the cynical person, but like to quote your friend Scott Johnson, who always likes to say, history is a rising road. And I think that we have made real and legitimate progress, and it's not by feeding things like dominance and control.
I hate that you characterize it like feeding their dominance and control.
It is.
I don't agree. I don't agree.
Everything you've described shows
I agree
at
with Mike,
home,
it is.
like in control of a thing that is as you deem it to be.
They're like,
because
I
you
want to
can't
cuddle
feel it.
now. We will cuddle now.
Yeah.
You know, like
No, you guys are
I-
mischaracterizing it completely.
I don't. I think
And I
you
don't like it.
characterize
I really,
very well.
I'm actually ready for verdicts because I want to stop talking about it. With you
Yeah.
guys. Like it's
I think at this
really,
point
it's
you're trying
really
to
bad.
pop
I don't know.
something.
I don't think you guys realize how closed off to the subject you guys are coming off as.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For usually open-minded people, pretty closed off. I'd say.
All right. Well, let us bring in the animals, and we can do the old verdictization. Oh, my AI just skipped.
All right, I'm gonna go first since I have the hosting duties of today's show, and I'm gonna stop listening after I finish speaking because I don't want to hear your verdicts. Because I found conversation on this one very difficult to have. I felt like I was under attack the entire episode, actually. So the idea being, that we are working towards artificial intelligence. We do things already in life that simulate and save us time. And there are a great many threads concurrently working, whether it's in VR, whether it's in neuroscience, whether it's in robotics, artificial intelligence, prosthetic limbs that we can I'd love to get a robot arm, chop off my arm, get a robot arm, a full degree of motion and strength and resilience. There are a lot of things that are very cool.
Hand.
Yeah, a fleshlight attachment for my robot arm. Actually, for my foot. That's more convenient, I think, that way. Hands free, baby. 2050. I'm hands free in 2050. The point being that I think there is something there is a sickness, because I think, remember, we did a show about marriage. I think marriage is fucking stupid too. I don't believe in the life partnership. I think it's an arbitrary designation we've done to organize ourselves in society. Yet the whole idea of marriage is exactly what your criticisms have been of having a robot one. We're working with the grain about how humans are, and this is the middle ground we've settled on as being generally acceptable, right? Not 8 wives, 1 wife, and when people go too far, it causes imbalance and arguments. And so now we want to say, hey, listen, there shouldn't be servitude within human relationships, but there is a power dynamic, there is a control dynamic, and there's a lot of what's in a relationship. Wouldn't it be nice if you could get out of that without all the garbage that comes along with partnerships and marriage? Things that I don't believe build character. I think they do the opposite of building character. I think they actually sabotage people and make them shittier for it. But that's my view of marriage, and that's why I feel optimistic about ways that we can engage in this way, in these natures, find love, perhaps with AI or very well developed simulacrum of life partnership, and spend our time focusing things that matter to us more. Because I don't think marriage matters that much. So I'm going to say robot life partners, they're good.
I don't know.
Do you want to go next?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I've been more infuriated at Bo.
It's because you guys are married and you're biased, and you're like, "Oh, marriage is an important institution. Life partnership's so good."
I really don't think that. I don't think you understand what my relationship's like. If that's what you think.
Well, you said that you were
both of you guys.
Some
both
mean
of
things.
you. I'm gonna be the referee here. Both of you guys have pointed at the other one and said "you" a lot, and I think it's gotten you both. It's gotten you both angry, and you both. Bo has said he felt under attack. Mike's now saying he feels upset. I think that it is because for whatever reason, you guys are making it about like Bo's life preferences or whatever, because it's pretty clear that he put this topic in the random topic generator. So I don't really everything I said this show I'm talking about on a very general level, but I don't it's a science fiction concept for the most part, so it's hard to think about like what you would do if You know, like what if there were sentient people? And we've had a lot of challenging science fiction that is tested that, like, you know, the Blade Runner, Philip K. Dick, like, you know, what if they're just like humans? Where's that line? And it gets all really complicated and really messy really quickly. But focusing on the conversation we did have, the idea of isolating oneself. I'm social, so a lot of this is based on my personal beliefs. But like the idea of isolating oneself from people, I always think is a negative. I think replacing people with other things is a negative. I think interacting with people helps us grow, helps them grow, and is part of participating in the collective. So to say, I want things a certain way, and I'm gonna get this robot in my house that's gonna allow me to have things my way, and but not have to deal with being pushed in any way, not having to, you never have to collaborate necessarily with the robot. You just, they do it your way, or it's done. I think I totally understand the appeal. Part of me is like, oh, that kind of sounds good. I can get my robot to do this and that. But honestly, once you're in a relationship and you feel pushed and you feel like you're growing and expanding, both sort of mentally, and you face challenges and you overcome them together. I mean, it helps you develop as a person, and I don't see the good that stems. The only thing I could see is what I did mention at one point was that, like, you have these extreme cases of somebody that's isolated, that has no family. Even then, you always hope that there's a better option. And Mike talked about, like, all these services that are available, and everything from like the Meals on Wheels to cuddling services that might help people in those situations. But I could understand at that point, like, maybe having something, but even then I would skew towards a pet or something alive, right? So I just feel everything around this it creates isolationism and leads to, like, enables negative things like dominance feelings and all that. So for all those reasons, even though I could see the appeal, I would definitely say that robot life partners are a bad idea. So bad.
Part of why I think I felt so triggered by this with Bo in particular is and I don't want to psychoanalyze him too much, but I think he does put forward a sentiment that a lot of other people share, and there's some legitimate stuff in there of, like, relationships are often, can be combative, or they're work, as everyone says. Relationship is work. You'll hear that in any place you read about marriage or any long-term partnership. You got to work on it. It's hard to do work sometimes, but I find that it's like there's this idea, and I find it a trend with some futurists, and again, I'm not trying to put Bo on the spot, but he's put forward some of these ideas before, and I think of it as like this kind of like displeasure with how some aspects of the world are, and there's two ways to approach that. I have a lot of displeasures with how the world is. Believe me, if you've listened to this show, I'm displeased about a great many things. But my view about that is not to pull back from them, to withdraw from them. It's to engage with them, to engage in ideas about things I don't like, to talk about them, to rant, and to try to get new ideas from people and have discussions. That's how I want to engage with those things that give me displeasure in the world. The other thing to do is to disconnect from it, is to say, I'm going to draw back into my home here. I look at the news, there's bombs and whatever. I'm not going to watch the news anymore. I don't like politics. I have no control. I'm not going to follow politics. I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to unplug. And so I envision this future with robot life partners where anyone who doesn't like ever having had a fight with a partner or a disagreement about something is just like, well, F this. I'm going to get my robot life partner. And you have all these people sitting alone in their homes with the robot life partners.
They'll go out to dinner on double dates.
Hey, my verdict. Sitting alone in their homes with their robot life partners who do everything as they want it to be done. They've completely disconnected. It's like they've abandoned society. So I see all these people alone in the house who've just abandoned it, and it's because and Bo said to focus on other things, and that was another thing he said, like, well, if you didn't have to waste all this time in a relationship, you could focus on the positive things. And I'm like, what things are you thinking? Like, how is society going to get better from people having less social interaction? I think it's already markedly obvious that social media is not helpful to our social fabric. And there's a lot of research that backs this up, and we need to grapple with this. And I just find that, like, people want to pull back from the world, and that's not a positive thing. And I really think that it's a symptomatic of a wholly negative thing. Anyways, I think I could go on because I'm fired up about this, but I really think robot life partners is a horrible, terrible idea. But in our three verdicts, bad is where it would fall from.
I hate so much how you characterize it as pulling back from the world. It makes me so mad. It's not.
Wait, whoa.
Where's the follow button on this computer?
So one thing that I do find funny about this episode is I could see at the beginning Bo was like, because it was we pulled the topic and we were getting no momentum going. Like, to a certain extent, we were talking about it, and it was like, well, what exactly are we talking about here? Let's define this. And then Bo was asking a whole bunch of questions, like trying to get things going. He mentioned me and the soul and how I was like, so he's really trying to get it going. But then it did start rolling, and then it started rolling, and I feel like at one point it was like, okay, now it's rolling too fast. We got to slow.
I mean,
slow
people in
this ship up.
human relationships become recluses with their partners. Like, that happens, and that's not good. That's what's not good for people.
But don't take anything personal.
It's burning my ass.
Don't take anything personal.
I'm
We're
not taking
allowed
it
our own
personally.
opinions on this show. We have different verdicts than you, different opinions.
And I made me feel a certain way, upset. Okay. Anyways, if you're upset, you should write in to us at goodbadbull@gmail.com. There you can let us know if you think people who have robot life partners are recluses and antisocials and are unhealthy, or if you think it's actually kind of an efficient way to live in the future, so that we can recognize all humans as people and not put these unreasonable needs on one another, and that it doesn't make you a lesser person. All right, so that's at goodbadbull@gmail.com is where you can send that, and I did a second verdict there.
Thanks. I noticed.
And you can find more about the show at goodbadbull.com. There's our website where all 203 of our episodes are posted. So go check out the vault, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at goodbadbull, not goodbadbill. It's a different show. Finally, at patreon.com/goodbadbull, people support us. And we've had a lot of new supporters. We've thanked them all before, but we're going to thank them again. And we'd love to hear from you, because, we'd like to raise money for the show. We do this ad-free every week. We put our heart and souls into it. Sometimes it comes at the cost of our friendship for a few days. That's worth something dollar-wise, so you should put some dollars in the hat and give us, if you think it was worth it, because we don't have any shitty ads on this show like a lot of your other podcasts do. Looking at you, Norm Macdonald podcast, it takes 3 minutes to tell your ad. It's annoying. But we don't do that. But if you do want to support the show, patreon.com/goodbadbull. And we thank the people who have supported us for many years now. Finally, the people on the show do have an internet presence of some kind. You can find me at Bo Schwartz. And if our listeners want to find out more about your opinions, and you posted a pretty great article today about property that I thought was interesting from Aeon Magazine. Where can our followers find you? Michael, where can our followers
They can find me reposting Aeon articles on Twitter at ML Hodgins.
Sweet. I like that idea, because the idea that tax is theft is assuming you even own the shit.
Yeah,
I like that.
People can look at the tweet if they want to read it.
It was a good one.
Get to the thing.
And also, we have this other gentleman here who had some opinions tonight. Unfortunately, didn't side with me, but you can, Crofton, if our listeners want to follow you, where can they do that?
They can follow me on the Twitter at Crofton Steers until I can get a tweet bot. They can write my own tweets for me and also give me a blowjob.
Hey, Crofton, that's a great idea. I had the same idea. because I realized that probably a lot of our listeners dislike this podcast when they were listening to it, and I'm like, wouldn't it be great if you could have a podcast that is developed by a software that all it does is read your mind and then spit out to you a new audio podcast once a week, which
Sounds
just tells you
great.
things you like to hear. Wouldn't that be great? You wouldn't
I'd
have
pay
to
money for that.
blowhards who say things you don't like.
Hey, question for you guys. I kept getting hung up on Blade Runner, but like there's a zillion of these like sci-fi things. Like there's that Steven Spielberg movie AI, right? Like I never watched it. Looks super boring.
It's good.
But there's
I recommend
is it?
Yeah, it's a
With
Spielberg
the-
joint. It's guaranteed like a certain level of quality.
What are other ones or other things where it's like like data? There's data and lore and stuff on Star Trek. There's other major AI struggling with emotions or being human.
There was a
becoming
Danny Boyle
human.
film. I just can't remember what it was. Was it? Yeah, it was a Danny.
Like there's a bunch of those. Like there's that Apple Siri movie with Joaquin Phoenix that came and Scarlett Johansson that came out recently. But there's
You're
a
just trying to think of movies about that have like AI stuff.
yeah,
in it?
but I feel like there's a significant relationship between an AI character and human character.
There was a really
or
good one
musings
recently.
on the like
I've got it. Ex Machina. It's
Oh,
Ex
yeah.
Machina. That was actually quite a good movie about
that was
a girl AI and her. She's passed. They were testing. They were doing the Turing test. They were at that point, and it's actually quite a well-made movie.
I found the ending a bit predictable though. I must say.
Yeah. I would say that, but overall, it was fairly good.
Yeah,
I'd
I
agree
liked
with
it,
that.
but-
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, no, it just feels like there's a lot. Bo also mentioned The Matrix, but like, yeah, I feel like there's a big one on
Chappie?
the tip of my brain that is just not
Is
like
it Chappie?
I'm not seeing it. Chappie?
The worst part, you know what I always find because we keep talking about that AI doesn't exist yet, but these movies,
in the
will
shell.
do a good job simulating it. But I always come back to like the movies it's played by some human being is pretending to be a robot. Like so, as much as like a look at like Data and Star Trek and like, oh, he has no emotions. You're like, yeah, it didn't really fool me. I'm like, he does. He's just very subtle about it, and and so Data like passes the Turing test in the sense that he's like is clearly a human being, with white paint on his face. And the same is true of all these movies with AI. So it's like you're just saying suspension
actor?
of disbelief. It's a robot.
See,
You might have
the-
been okay.
the-
we know it's an actor. Cross.
the thing is Brent
yeah.
Spiner. But the thing is just like I tried not to mention this while we were doing this show, but like we did artificial intelligence,
I know.
right? Like way back
That's
when.
one we should revisit. Actually, There's so
And
much-
I was the one in that episode. I was the Bo of this episode in that episode. So like you guys were both hammering on me, and I was the one that was sort of saying what like Stephen Hawking and all those folks are saying now. Well, being like, AI. Like if we're going down the rabbit hole of science fiction here, like I mean, they could take control of everything and screw us, right? Like and be like, let me do a diagnosis of the Earth. Unhealthy problem. Humans cure. Kill them all. Like like
Skynet.
And I see, and I totally get like where you guys were coming from in that episode about it being sort of like a good thing. And I said during the virtual reality episode that everybody has their like sci-fi sort of future thing that they draw the line on and they say this is good or this is bad or this is whatever, right? But it is funny because this was like for me in my mind, I'm like, if you did create these robot life partners and you guys are talking about like unionization or them becoming like, the more sentient that they become and the rights that they would accrue and all this. And I'd be like, one of them would just plug into our entire internet and then fuck us all over. Like, that's all that would happen.
That's what
So
Ultron. That's what Ultron.
it's kind of
did.
interesting. Remember at the start I talked about that existence bias idea? Well, just before that, they talked a lot about AI and stuff like that in that episode. Worth a listen if you feel like a deep think. It's quite philosophical. But they were talking about, this one guy was talking about that even if you created an AI, this was a sort of thought experiment where he talked about this existence bias, an AI, like a perfect AI, one that is like benevolent, it wants to help humanity, its values line up with ours, its goals line up with that. All it ever wants to do is help. And it might, but he said even in this case where it doesn't want to do anything actively bad, he said you could still have the outcome where if it's a pure, this super rational, super brilliant machine that understands and is constantly augmenting itself, that what it might see is that like, oh, it might understand perfectly how human brain works and be like, oh, a human being is caught in with an existence bias, and it doesn't realize that its own existence is causing the suffering of itself and pretty much all other human beings, and that probably being that existence and non-existence are equally good, I would be doing these people a great service if they just didn't exist. Because we might not see, it might even see, even a perfect AI might kill us all in our own best interest because we kind of do it to ourselves in a much more suffering way. So I was like, interesting idea.
So we should talk about maybe revisiting certain episodes if you guys feel
AI is worth it, I think.
If it's worth, I don't know how we do that. We'd have to stick them back in or whatever. I don't know how it would work.
No, we could do it like stuff you should know has the selects. Like we could just this is a week now where we take a trip back and do a remembrance episode, but not remembrance. It's the wrong word.
Are we we probably faded out
I
somewhere?
think so. As per usual, I've got to find somewhere that seems okay to raise the volume up on it. We don't end properly. So yes, I think we're
so I just want to note Wicked Kitten who's saying here that they're not reading the chat. I was not reading the chat and I am now. Her with Joaquin Phoenix, and that's the movie. It was Her that I kept butchering the title.
I also saw in her chat that she really disagreed with me so much, and I do know that when I say those things about the disconnecting, that it definitely rubs people the wrong way, especially people who are have an online presence, which Bo does, and I get that, and I get that there's community there, and I'm not trying to say those things to be like prodding and what you're doing is wrong. Like that's not my aim actually, but I still do think that there's some self-reflection that is always worth doing, well, for anyone at any time, but to be like, why do these things draw you? And I'm not even casting judgment, but I wasn't trying to make people feel bad for withdrawing, but I do think there's a bit of that sometimes. It's nice to withdraw. I spent a good 10 years of my life withdrawn.
What was the name of those didn't we talk at one point about these Japanese guys that are just in their room and all the time and do you remember?
A lot of that saddens me.
No, but there was like articles about this where they were like just nonstop in the room. What is it with me and Asians today? I really got a problem.
You're racist. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
like
we knew that already. Racist.
I wouldn't leave the Asians alone. But but yeah, no. There's a big sort of I forget what they're called. There was an article. There's a whole type of person that is like they lock in and they barricade themselves in and something.
It's hive mind alpha.
No, they're just a recluse or they're antisocial. They have a problem.
I guess there's always been hermits.
I gotta Google
Japanese. It's got nothing to do with robot girlfriends.
Japanese recluse.
Did I tell you guys about that?
Hikikomori. Hiki. That's what it is.
What is it?
Okay. Well, it's
in Japan. Hikikomori are.
Fuck it! I'm gonna send you the Wikipedia.
Are reclusive adolescents or adults who withdraw from social life, often seeking extreme degrees of isolation and confinement.
Remember, didn't we talk about this at one point before?
Yeah, I'm sure we have. Because I think there was an article, someone killed themselves, and then this became like a thing in popular media for a little while.
But like, are these people isolating themselves even from internet connections and online communities, or?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. You'd have to read the article.
Well, it made me think. I might have told you guys this, but I read this article about this dude in Maine who decided that he just wanted to be alone. I think I told you about this. So he went into the woods And there he stayed for 27 years, and he didn't speak to anybody in that entire time or see another person until finally like the police went and got him because he was able to live by stealing things from people's cottages. He just wanted to be alone, and the person writing the article was like, as far as we know, this guy might have spent the most time alone of anyone ever. Even like classic hermits in the olden days, people would go to see them. This guy, and imagine this, he didn't have a fire. He lived in Maine, that gets cold. He didn't have a fire for 27 years because he thought the smoke would lead people to his little campsite. So every day, so he wouldn't die, he got up at 2 o'clock in the morning and just walked around his campsite to keep warm until the sun came up, and then he was able to snooze again. And I was just like, oh my God. It's so crazy that someone did that, but he just wanted to be alone.
I know that this person is not Stephen King, but as soon as you said Maine, I was like, hey, that's where Stephen King lives. Maybe that's how he writes so many books so fast.
He's just in the woods by himself.
He's by himself. He's just writing stories. He's like, and then there was a crazy clown or whatever, and then he robs people's houses and leaves manuscripts. Man, that'd be sweet deal. He could rob my house.
That's a pretty. The stretching that I found it humorous, but also it's really stretching to make it all stick together.
That's what I do. Speaking of things I need to do, I really need to pee. I've had to pee for so long, and it's a testament to how much I appreciate you guys that during one of my
if you had a robot sex partner, you could just urinate in its mouth, and then you wouldn't have to go all the way to the mouth.
Okay, Mike's doubling down on.
Let's face it, Bo. I know that's what you would be doing.
It's
You're
fine.
like down robot sex partner.
I don't want you to get the impression that I'm upset with you, because I'm not. I just didn't.
No.
I wanted the conversation to go in a different direction. It just didn't. So we're gonna leave that on print.
I'm legitimately curious what direction you wanted to go in. I mean,
well, just talk about what society might be like and how awesome it would be. But clearly, that's not where it was going.
I think it'd be terrible.
Yeah. Well, we all have to have opinions, so.
And we do on this show.
And that people do have differing experiences in their relationships that lead them to different beliefs and teachings. So I'm fine. We had a difference of opinion, and we leaned into it, and that's when a show's good.
Yeah, I'd say. Yeah. I agree with that.
So we're fine. I won't have a robot girlfriend this lifetime, so it's not like it's something I consider for myself.
Sometimes I feel like you wake up every morning and curse that you weren't born 100 years later, when you could just upload to the hive mind, have a robot girlfriend. You're like, you're just gonna miss out.
I think the hive mind is probably a good millennia away still. Like we'll get there.
You think?
Yeah, that's a pretty tough nut to crack.
No, man, you should. The exponential growth in tech. Give it 50 years, we'll all be living in a hive mind, wishing we could kill ourselves and cursing that we're stuck immortal in here. That's what it would be. You'd be like, let's upload to the hive mind. You upload and be like, oh God, I wish I could kill myself, but now I'm immortal. Oh! And it's like that forever.
Now I'm immortal.
All right.
Oh, man.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out, loyal listeners in the chat room. Monica, Rami, who just sent me a Futurama video called Don't Date a Robot. I'll be sure to watch that.
I immediately thought of Bender, which is probably.
I don't know if he's still here, but there was this person that said only one thing: "Is Deadly Dodger 19?" Did you see that, Mike?
Yeah, when you go to sleep or something.
Go to bed, Michael. You look tired. And I was like,
I don't think I sounded tired. I was going off the rails.
He said you look tired. I was like, what a dick. But we probably do look tired, because
I think it's funny because like. Pretty much all the time we do the show because he legitimately is tired, but Mike often does look tired.
Yeah. Well, he's probably up really early, whereas
Well, he's done a lot. Yeah. He does a lot.
I think Mike earns his tiredness the most out of all of us, but I might be. All right. Anyways, thank you for watching, folks. Until next time, take care.
Adieu.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.